Can you actually buy a decent quality barefoot style boot that has some of the qualities that people really enjoy about heritage boots while still maintaining some of the barefoot attributes that make them what they are, with the wide toe box, the zero drop, the flexibility, the lightweight? It's a tough thing to do, but we've got 4 options that look like they have different takes on that same concept of making a true barefoot boot that you can rely on. So we're gonna cut them in half, run through our test, really figure out which of these top 4 barefoot boots might be the best for you, for your application you're trying to get them for, which is the best qualities and the materials, so that you can make your own decision based off of all the information that we give you, because the barefoot world is so diverse and it's so all over the place and it's such a new industry that people are doing some wacky stuff, some really traditional stuff, so that you know what you're actually buying when it comes to these barefoot boots. So what are the contenders of this series? Well, the first is the Vivobarefoot. The style is the Jungle Escape. They weigh 1 pound 4 ounces. They retail for $280. They're made in Vietnam, and the way they position this is, as the planet's most biodiverse land biome, the jungle presents unique challenges for human exploration. With high heat and humidity, relentless moisture, and thick undergrowth, it demands nothing short of world-class outdoor gear. Enter the Jungle Escape, I think it's Escape, ESC, a barefoot feature-packed boot and the result of nearly a decade of research and development, engineered to not just survive, but to thrive in Earth's most challenging environments. And just to give you kind of my initial thoughts, these things are wild. I actually really like these. I think they look all like completely insane. They look so crazy. I've never seen a boot look like this. It kind of reminds me of how termites dig underneath the bark of logs. And it's just crazy. It's such a unique boot, and it's clearly modeled after the Jungle Boot. And I'm really curious to see all the different features and how good it actually is, because this could be a really interesting boot for the barefoot world. Next to the Soft Stars. So obviously the brand is Soft Star. The style is the adult switchback boot. They weigh 13 ounces, retail for $245, and they're made in Oregon, USA. And the way they position this product is, we're raising the bar for minimalist hiking boots. Our switchback boots are lightweight, breathable, and zero drop. The rugged Vibram Mega Grip soles will securely take you through the most extreme treks. Choose between virtually indestructible super fabric or the all-leather look. Get ready for your next great adventure. And these are kind of your traditional style hiking boots, you know, that stitched down construction, leather. But I'm really curious how much of this is actually that heritage style and how many components and materials you get, especially compared to the barefoots that we're going to cover that are really heavy duty materials. Next, the brand is Hinza. This is the style is the hiker foot trek shoe. They weigh 12.7 ounces. Price is $256. They're made in the Czech Republic. And the way they position this product is, your wish is our command. Barefoot shoe lovers have been asking for an indestructible ankle trekking boot from us, and here they are. We took the design from physiotherapists, extra durable materials, an anti-slip Vibram sole, and we produce a handmade trekking boot that can withstand millions of steps. And we'll go over this more in the leather section, but this is a fully vegan boot. And so to claim like indestructible, all these things, I'm really curious how well built these actually are compared to just the marketing jargon. Then to one of the strongest contenders, this is the brand is Barefoot. The style is the Bruin in Kodiak Brown. They weigh 1 pound 6.8 ounces. They retail for $249. They're made in Mexico, and the way that Barefoot positions this product is, the Bruin is a rugged heritage style boot designed to improve foot strength and movement quality even in the most demanding conditions. Its ultra wide toe box and flat outsole provide a substantial barefoot experience while protecting your feet from harsh terrain. Crafted with durable, high quality US sourced leather and designed for maximal comfort and versatility, it's perfect for everyday adventure, exploring off the grid, or navigating the concrete jungle. And to me, the Barefoots are a pretty solid contender for this series, because we have cut them in half before a year or so ago. And so we know that they're really pretty durable, and the guys that run this business, they're a bunch of jack dudes. And so they weight in this stuff, they really beat them up. They're always cutting stuff with axes. And so the dudes that built this boot have that intention of making a really strong, durable boot, and they really put them through the paces. And so I'm curious to see how this compares to the Vivo, because it's kind of the same concept, but from different ends to try to create a very similar boot. Everyman Jack sent me 4 of their new scents that are made with clean ingredients, no harsh chemicals, to see which one is my favorite. So let's start with number 1. That smells like orange. That's gotta be Mandarin vetiver for sure. I'm confident about that one. Okay, next. I'm gonna go with, I feel like that one's sea salt. All right, give me a full whiff. I like sea salt. Sea salt's my favorite from Everyman Jack. Shout out to Everyman Jack. Cold plunges, smelling salts. I love working with Everyman Jack. My guess is cedarwood, because I can't smell anything. So get body wash that doesn't have harsh chemicals. Just get stuff that has clean ingredients, like Everyman Jack. So check them out below, all the new scents. I use it every day. I've never really had a Mandarin body wash. That's probably the one I'll try next. The real sea salt is a nice, like, clean, crisp smell. So I'd use that in the morning, just get that fresh, clean, crisp smell. And thanks again to Everyman Jack. Check out the links below. Second hit, let's go. So now I'll start going through the materials and start comparing them. So we're gonna go that same order, starting with the Vivo. So this is that vegan style synthetic overlays with mesh. You know, there's no leather, it's all synthetics. But you have that really cool pattern. It's like, so what that does is it doesn't just look cool. It gives you those high spots of that rubber or that overlay are gonna protect the material underneath, which is this canvas. So you get the breathability and flexibility of canvas, but the protection of like this harder shell around the outside. And because it's all perforated, has these lines, it flexes, it breathes. It's just a really crazy take on a boot. And the toe box, honestly, is a fairly attractive looking toe box for this kind of boot. Just a little side note. Then if we go to the Soft Star, so this is their eco-friendly Italian leather that's treated for water repellency, and they call it Leather Shield. And this leather is a very soft and supple leather. It's really dry, it's pretty foamy, and has a really heavy pigment on top. It's more like sneaker leather, how it kind of crinkles up and you have that really heavy top coat. It's not the highest quality leather by any means, but it's not necessarily really cheap leather. It's just kind of mid-grade leather, and so I wouldn't have a ton of concerns with it wearing out for just casual use, but it's really nothing compared to like a real boot leather like the Bruins that we'll go over in a sec. But Soft Star doesn't just have these leather versions, they also have these really, really cool, speaking of innovative stuff, this is one of the more heritage of the lineup, but they use this really interesting, like, armored material. It's like they took like almost a canvasy fabric and then screen printed these hard bubbles on top of it that harden and become almost like stingray leather, where in order to wear this material out, you have to wear through this really hard layer of those beads on top. And so it's a cool way of combining the traditional with more cutting edge technology by getting the flexibility, but even more durability. So honestly, out of the two materials, I think this is gonna be more durable, and this is just cooler generally. So you've got a couple different options with the Soft Star. We're mostly gonna be focused on the leather one. And I'm trying so hard not to be mean about the vegan leather, but the Hinzas are a cruelty vegan leather, and it is a very convincing vegan leather. You know, when I got it in hand, I thought it was leather for sure, and even like the lining and everything, it's a convincing leather. But vegan leather can be all over the place. It can be a really high quality leather that has a lot of fiber structure and really strong, or it can be a really cheap leather with a lot of foam and it just falls apart immediately. And if you look at the cross section of this leather, or fake leather, you can see it does have a really fibrous structure. It's not a cheap fake leather, and it looks like it's gonna be fairly durable. Let's just real quick, just see what happens if we try to rip it. Yeah, so it's pretty strong. Sometimes that fake leather you can just immediately rip apart. And then to the Barefoot, so this is they say it's a full grain leather, but it's clearly a nubuck leather where they sand the top surface down. But you can see there's tons of grain in it, so I think it's just a typo or misunderstanding about full grain versus top grain versus nubuck. It's heavily saturated, and it is a really good quality leather. Out of the two that are leather, this one is clearly better. So what about like the thicknesses and durability of these leathers? Well, the Vivo is about 2 millimeters with the overlay, and the canvas itself is just 0.5 millimeters. The Soft Star leather is 1.3 millimeter. The Hinza's fake leather is 1.2 millimeters. The Bruins are 2 millimeter. And we also ran the puncture test. The Vivo took 57, Soft Star 92, the Hinza's 96, and Bruins took 50. The Barefoots performed slightly lower than I thought, but a lot of times that can be because a lot of the really soft, supple leather almost like lubricates the puncture as it goes through. So overall, out of the two leathers, which is the better leather, I still think the Bruins is a better leather. And the Soft Star is still a decent leather, but it's far from like a really, really high quality leather. And then out of the two that are not leather, I love this Vivo one. I think it's just such a cool concept. I don't like fake leather, I don't like vegan leather, but this doesn't seem like horrible vegan leather, but I still take this one. It's just a really cool concept. Now to the linings. They actually have a lot of interesting linings in these boots, because if we start looking at the Vivos, this is their like it's a high vis lining. So it's kind of a spacer mesh concept where you have some breathing room between the layers that are touching your foot, because it has a little built up fiber structure between those layers. And so the goal of that is so that it is more breathable, and so you don't have all that weight and that heavy leather or whatever the material is wrapped around your foot. It's clearly made to be really, really breathable. And I honestly have never even worn a pair of boots that have this kind of lining, so I have no idea how durable it is or isn't, but the concept is cool. Is it gonna last nearly as long as leather? Probably not. But, and deep in the heel, if you look inside of there, they actually have a dedicated heel counter. I doubt it's real leather, because I don't think I think it's a vegan-friendly boot, but that is a very like leather boot feature they put into a synthetic boot that I love. I was really glad to see that heel counter on the inside. Then to the soft stars. So this is a cool one because this is merino wool lined, and merino wool is moisture wicking, it's temperature regulating, it's odor and microbial, and you would think that, oh, you don't want wool in a boot for hiking, but it's a really thin layer of wool. And I haven't hiked in these a ton, but it doesn't feel like you're walking around in winter boots. I think it does thermoregulate pretty decently, and I just love wool. It's got a lot of really cool characteristics and properties. If you want more wool information, we'll put some of the cool wool videos we've done with the mugs and the Uggs videos that we've done. I just really like that concept. Like, both of these boots have taken a really unique approach to linings that we've never really seen. Will the wool be as durable as leather? Probably not. How long do I think the wool lining will last? I think it's gonna last a decent time, but I still don't think it's anywhere close to like a regular heritage style internal heel counter or just even leather on the inside. But wool is a fairly durable material. Next, if we look at the insoles, this is more vegan leather, but it is so convincing. They've done a really, really good job of making this fake leather look just like leather. It's very convincing. It is really, really thin, and so if you do start wearing through this, or if it is prone to failure, you don't have a lot of thickness to wear through before you compromise the lining on the inside. And it looks like a different structure internally compared to the outer leather. Maybe it's to keep it a little more moisture absorbent or breathable, or it could just be it's flexible, but I would say that the lining is gonna be less durable than the outer, and being vegan leather, I still just have my apprehensions about it, but I'm also very biased towards real leather. Then to the Bruins, so we've got kind of a skeleton lining on the inside. It's a leather lining that's around 1 millimeter thick, and you've got it up around the collar and in the vamp, but through the shaft of the boot, there's no lining, which I think is a nice compromise for getting that strength and that lining benefit on the top while still keeping it really minimalist through the shaft of the boot. And it's real leather, which I always love. So if I were to rank these linings from least durable potentially to most durable, because we don't know, I haven't worn enough of these or tested these enough to really know, so it's a guess. So take this with a grain of salt. I would say the Bruins are going to be the most durable. Then I would probably go with the Vivos because they have that dedicated internal counter cover. Then I would go with the soft stars, and then the insoles last. I don't know anything about these. These could be all over the place. So from my perspective, you could interchange these, and I'm pretty confident they're going to be less durable than these two. Then to something that's usually not very interesting, but we got some really cool insoles for once, because this Vivo boot is clearly modeled after the Jungle Boot. And if you remember, the Jungle Boot had like almost what do you describe it as? It's like a sponge for an insole, but instead of absorbing water, it's made to push water out of the boot. And that's almost exactly what this insole is from Vivo. It is that same kind of spacer mesh feeling where you've got fiber structure internally that gives it it's not foam, it's like a fiber structure. And so it's gonna give you that squish. Is it made to push out water like the actual Jungle Boots? Probably not, because I don't see any ports like the Jungle Boot has. But it is a really cool way of like harkening back to maybe some of the inspiration and a different way to make an insole that doesn't use foam. Then to the Soft Star, they have a permanent merino wool insole, and it's glued in, but you can pull it out. But the problem is you're gonna pull some chunks of leather or foam off if you do. And you have that softer, almost pour-on style memory foam that's like 3 millimeters topped with that merino wool that's a lot thicker than the actual lining wool. So you get all those features of the wool plus the squish of the foam. And I would assume it's gonna be as durable as the lining, if not more, because it's a thicker version of that wool. The Hinses have another glued in vegan leather topped with just a little bit of foam. And then your Barefoots. This is something I wish Barefoot would upgrade, because this insole, a lot like this Vivo, has an edge binding all the way around it. The problem with that is it creates a high spot and on your pinky toe and your big toe, and I know it will compress over time, but you do just have that uneven surface inside of your boot. And I feel like it'd be a pretty easy fix for them to do, because all it is that leather with foam underneath, and that edge binding is really what screws it up. Other than that, it's a pretty decent lining or insole, but the Vivos have the exact same thing. They have that edge binding. So I don't know. I wish both these guys would not do that because I find it really uncomfortable. And underneath this insole, you've got the only boot that has an actual layer of leather. It's a 1.5 millimeter layer of veg tan leather. So you're going to get some of that anti-smell property from leather. You're going to get a little bit of that compression, and you're going to get the durability of leather underneath your foot. So if I were to rank these from best insole trying to combine durability plus comfort, I would say it's a little bit of a risk with the Vivo. I don't know anything about this. It's a completely new concept I've never tried. So I'd honestly, the safest bet's probably the merino wool one from Softstar. Then I'd go with Vivo, then Barefoot, and then Hinza. Just because, not solely because it's vegan leather, but it's a little thinner foam underneath and it's permanent, so you can't really replace it without really scraping out the inside of the boot with all the leftover foam. Then if we look at maybe my most griped about part of Barefoot boots is that midsole, because sometimes these boots just have zero cushioning underneath the foot. And there's so many die-hard Barefoot people that just want nothing but like a single piece of rubber underneath their foot, and they're the true Barefoot guys. I like the Barefoot stuff. I like having a little squish. I like to be comfortable. I like the feel of a normal shoe underfoot, but with the wide toe box and the dropped heel. And so I'm a little bit biased to having a little bit more squish, keep that in mind. But so the Vivo, they don't have any sort of midsole as far as we can tell. It's just the lasting board and the outsole underneath. Now that we have this pulled out, you can see the Sofstars have, once you pull this out, you're standing on that foam midsole that's a 50 Shore A and like 6 millimeters thick. Then the Hinzas are just that lasting material, just like the Vivos. And then the Barefoot have a rubber slip sole that you're standing on when you remove that insole. So none of these really have that much squish. Ranking them from least squish to most squish, least squish is probably the Hinzas. Then I would go Vivos, Barefoot, and then the most squish is the Sofstars. And next to the outsoles, which matters a lot for hiking boots, obviously, because if it doesn't have any grip, you're gonna struggle hiking. And once again, the Vivos, I really like these Vivos. I think they've done a really cool thing. It's almost like a tire tread. It's literally a Michelin outsole, and it's very luggy. It's gonna be very grippy. The only downside you could really even try to point to is like having such sparse lugs, it could potentially wear down faster. But it is a 73 Shore A, so it is up there in that work boot hardness. So I wouldn't be too stressed about it wearing out too fast because it is a really hard rubber. And it's also puncture resistant. The Pro 5 puncture resistant finish is a lightweight and flexible 0.8 millimeter layer on the sole. And the outsole is around 9 millimeters, including the lugs. Next, if we look at the Sofstars, so this is another name brand outsole with the Vibram. This is that Mega Grip outsole. Similar spaced lugs to the Vivos, very similar pattern even. A little bit shallower lugs, and it's only 6 millimeters rather than the 9, and it's 65 Shore A, so a little bit softer than the Vivos. But this is a really nice outsole. I think for a Barefoot boot, this is a pretty good option. My only concern with some of these really spaced out outsoles, and I don't even think these suffer from it, is if they're spaced out too much, I'd be worried that you get kind of high spots and low spots slowly breaking into the boot. But with this thick of a foam midsole, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Then to the Hinzas, so this is another Vibram. So this is something I really like about where this Barefoot world is going. They're getting higher quality, more name brand components, and just smarter designs across the board, including the vegan stuff with the Vibram outsole. This is very similar to the previous one we just mentioned, less sparse lugs. So you're gonna get a little bit maybe more durability out of it, but I think it's honestly pretty comparable. The biggest difference is the hardness of this outsole. This is an 82 Shore A, so it's quite a bit harder than the Sofstars. And so to me, that will make it be more durable than the previous two, but you sacrifice a little bit of that squish by getting that extra hard rubber. And then to the Bruin, so this is their Bear Track Tread outsole, which they just took their logo and repeated it over and over. So quite a bit different than the luggy style outsoles that we just talked about. They don't have big lugs, they have little teeny lugs, and so they're gonna be grippy in a different way than these big lugs. And it's the softest out of the bunch at a 63 Shore A. So if I were to rank these from most grippy to least grippy, I'd probably go Vivos, and then the Sofstars, Hinza, and then Barefoot. But from least durable to most durable, I'd say that I would honestly, because the lugs are spaced out more, even though it's a Vibram outsole, my guess is that the Softstar would wear out just a little bit faster than the Bruins, what I'd put next. Then to the Hinzas. No, I'd do the Vivos and then Hinzas last. So I'd go Softstar, Bruins, Vivo, and then Hinza for the most durable outsole. And then to test all those materials that we just talked about with the outsole, midsole, and insole and see how responsive they are, we did the bar drop test where we dropped that really heavy, it's like 40-pound bar on the heel, see how far it bounces up. The Vivo bounced up 5 inches, Softstar did 4.5, Hinza did 5.5, and Barefoot did 5.6. So pretty similar across the board. They're all about the same responsiveness. But the puncture test, on the other hand, this is one I was really interested in because Vivo has that anti-puncture thing that it also mirrors the Jungle Boot, which is part of why I love this boot. So this one on the puncture test took 204 pounds. The Softstar took 92 pounds, the Hinza took 96 pounds, and the Bruins took 205. So both of the Vivo and the Bruins did really, really well, and these two did not do as well, but you know, you're not really gonna be stepping on punji sticks. But 90 pounds is still a decent test where I wouldn't be super concerned about stuff poking all the way through the boot into my foot. Then finally to the construction where these really, really differ. The Vivo is a really cool cup sole that's sidewall stitch. We saw a similar style in that Rocky boot that's more of a barefoot style that you might want to watch if you like this boot because it's very similar. So it has a couple of those features that I really value in sneakers with the cup sole it wraps around that's also cemented and sidewall stitched. So you kind of have like a triple redundant outsole attachment. So I would not stress about this outsole coming off anytime soon. That is a very smart and durable way to attach the outsole. And the cool thing about it is you've got like lower spots where it's made to flex here and here. And then where you need that support, it creeps up the sidewall a little bit more around the heel and right at the ball of your foot. I guess this isn't really the outsole, but you can see this heel counter wraps around in the medial side, and then you got a little patch here on the lateral side, giving just a little bit of protection, a little bit of support and rigidity so your boot just doesn't collapse on top of your foot. The Softstars are more your traditional style construction where you've got that stitch down construction where the upper is flared out and sewn down to that midsole, and then the outsole is glued on. Benefits of that is it is that durable heritage style construction. It's easier to resole when you wear this outsole off versus the Vivo. You have to send this back into Vivo and then they'll repair it for you, which is cool, but you can't take it to any local cobbler to do it. If we look at the Hinzas, this is a cemented construction, but it's a really smart cemented construction because it's, once again, similar to a sneaker style where it has this vulcanized, where it has this foxing strip wrapped all the way around. And the goal of that is to prevent early delamination, because if you have just a flat sole and it's just glued to that flat part of the upper, at any point that can start peeling away and start pulling the whole outsole off. But when you have this rubber strip wrapped all the way up the sidewall, not only do you get that protection of that sidewall being rubber, but you get that better bond of rubber on rubber, and it doesn't have as much of a separation point if it was just that fake leather glued to the rubber outsole. And then to the Bruins, so this looks like a Goodyear welted boot, but this is a fake welt. It's a Blake stitch, so it's still sewn together. It's not a cemented traditional boot fake. It has that internal Blake stitch that sews the insole that is leather and the upper that's wrapped underneath of that to the midsole layer. So it's a nice layer sandwich that seam completely seals off, and it's glued as well. And they say that they do this fake welt because it looks cooler. When we asked them about the fake welt when we did the first video, they mentioned they put it there because it does look better, and also it helps prevent delamination by having more surface area everything's glued to, and it prevents stuff getting in between those two layers that could easily start building up dirt, premature delamination. So at the end of the day, it is still a fake welt and it is a synthetic welt, but it does have that Blake stitch on the inside. So that's all the information we can gather from the outside. So let's cut these things in half, see what's on the inside, and really figure out which of these might be best for which situations, and if there's any you might want to avoid. All right, we got them cut in half, and if you're not subscribed, consider doing it because these boots were not cheap. These Barefoot boots, they charge a lot of money for a very simple shoe. And so it's like $1,000 to do this video. So anything you can do to help us out by subscribing, liking, commenting, supporting this channel, the Rose Anvil 2 channel, our handmade leather goods, the collaborations that make all this possible, consider doing it. It helps out. So let's see what's inside. Nice. So what do we have on the inside now? Well, most importantly, you can see all these really unique materials that these brands have used. You've got that little layer of spacer mesh for the lining of the Vivos. That heel counter that we talked about is going to make it a lot more durable than just the spacer mesh. It's like almost a jersey spacer mesh. It's really interesting. Then the insole, it is exactly what we thought. It's crazy. It's a weird shoe. This is like a futuristic barefoot shoe. So I really like this aspect of like taking the jungle boot, this historical boot, like the future of shoe technology with all this crazy materials plus the barefoot attributes to make this like trifecta of a really, really unique boot. And now that it's cut in half, you can really see how thin some of that overlay is to make it not too bulky and not too rigid while still maintaining a lot of the breathability by having those little ventilation slots or whatever you want to call them. And there's a layer on the inside I didn't even notice, is this layer here that I'm not even sure what it does. It looks, maybe it's just to give it a little bit of structure. But other than that, that's basically it on the inside of this boot. Very simple, but very unique across the board. The whole thing is completely unique from any other boot we've ever cut in half. If you look at the soft stars, basically exactly what we thought. You know, very simple construction, but they're using a lot more natural materials, old school production style, old school materials with the leather and the wool. Very similar concept boots, but very different ways of approaching it. There's really no counter in the heel at all, no toe counter. You do have this nice double layer toe cap and this bumper that runs all the way around the boot though, which I appreciate. Then the Hinzas, this boot has really surprised me across the board. I was ready to just talk mad trash on this the whole time because it's vegan leather and usually it sucks, but this shoe is actually pretty impressive for a vegan friendly shoe. Very convincing leather, it seems to be very durable fake leather, high quality components with the Vibram outsole, a smart construction style, and very simple all the way through, but really well put together. And then to the Barefoot, this is probably the maybe most sturdy and rigid of all the constructions because you have that thin layer of leather, that thicker rubber midsole and that thicker rubber outsole, and it just creates a little bit more firm of a flex, which some people are gonna like, some might not like. I liked a little bit more beefy side of the Barefoot boots, and this boot out of the bunch is more like a regular boot. You know, you've got a typical synthetic heel counter, you got a toe stiffener. They do a really unique way of creating the little accordion fold here at the tongue. It kind of folds in on itself and you lace the leather through 2 layers, which I think is really unique. And they got that cut out for the flex, and you can really see that skeleton lining now and that internal heel counter that gives you that durability that is similar to the Vivos. The Vivos synthetic leather, real leather, and you can see how that Blake stitch sews through that insole, that leather insole, and that midsole binding all those layers together. So now, out of the bunch of them, which do I think is gonna be the most durable? I think the Bruins by Barefoot is probably gonna be the most durable. It's the heaviest duty, it's got the thickest materials, it's the most rigid out of the bunch. I think it's gonna be your most durable one. Which is gonna be the most comfortable underfoot? It might be the soft stars because you got that 6mm foam layer that you're standing on, that wool, and you have another layer of that pour-on style foam underneath the wool. I think this would probably be the most comfortable underfoot. It's also really, really wide. You know, I think if we were to, we'll rank this after, which is the widest to least wide, but it is gonna be one of the more roomy toe boxes, so I think that's probably gonna be the most comfortable. Which is the coolest, the most innovative? The Vivos. I just like basically everything Vivo does, and I think they're really pushing innovation. They're one of the only brands in the barefoot world that are really doing things unique and different, making really, really, really nice looking shoes too. I like that they're pushing the envelope, and so this to me is clearly the most innovative and different and boundary pushing out of the bunch. Which is the most wide toe box and barefoot? Well, just from the top-down view, I would say the Hinza, then Softstar, then the Bruins, and then Vivo. But we pulled out the insoles to kind of layer them up to show you what the difference is. And they're honestly pretty similar, very slight differences. Looks like the Barefoot is just a little bit wider than the Softstar, and then the Softstar compared to the Vivo are about the same. They're very, very similar. The Vivo might just be a touch wider, and the Hinzas is like a 1/4 inch wider. So the Hinzas are the widest for sure. What about the best looking to the worst looking? Like for me, for the Barefoot world, the biggest barrier to entry for most people is they don't want to look like they're wearing clown shoes all day. Nobody wants to go hiking with a gal and you just show up in flippers. It's a tough transition for a lot of people, especially with that wide toe box. But a lot of these brands have figured out ways to hide it and kind of manipulate the patterning to really hide how wide it is and to make them really good looking. If I were to rank them from worst looking to best looking, even though the Hinzas are fake leather, I'm not weighing that into this decision. It's got a really bulbousy toe, which will flatten out over time, but because it is the widest insole, it does look the most clownish out of the bunch. And the pattern is almost like a sneaker boot hybrid pattern. And so I really don't think it's an ugly boot, but it's probably my least favorite. Then I would go to the Softstars. Once again, I think they're still a pretty decent looking boot. It has a really unique patterning to it. You know, it's very distinct. You've got the toe bumper, you've got these panels giving you the instep support, but it is a look of its own. It doesn't really look like heritage boots. It doesn't really look like modern boots. It's kind of its own animal. And I just like the next ones more. So out of the Bruin and the Vivo, they're kind of two different things, because this is like more of a true traditional like heritage looking boot. And this is a space age, like barefoot space pirate on a distant wooded planet boot. So for me, in a vacuum, I think this one just looks so cool. I like the look of it, but because it is so wild looking and so different, I would probably end up wearing the Bruins a little bit more just because it's more subtle, more traditional. So I'd probably put Vivo, and then on top, best looking, I would say the Barefoot. It's a look, it's a very distinct look, and so I could swap them around. Is there any of these that you should avoid? Not really. I think they've all done a really decent job. You know, barring my dislike of vegan leather, this one still surprised me. I like the small team making these small batches of these. Vivo's pushing the envelope. The big old jacked buff dudes making some really tough barefoot boots. They're all really good options for different things. So what would I use one for over the other? What would be the one thing that each of these boots would excel at? This is just a really good hiking boot that's gonna be really breathable, really a solid summer hiking boot that still is barefoot, has tons of grip. This is a really good, like summery, light weather hiking boot. And I think it's the best hiking boot of the bunch. The Softstars are probably your most comfortable. We kind of said that already, and it's definitely has the most squish underfoot out of the bunch and has the softest, most malleable leather out of the bunch. So that's probably what this is. It's a good hiking boot that's really comfortable, has some all natural materials except for like that foam midsole. And so it's your natural, comfortable hiking boot or casual boot if you want. And not to mention the crazy material we talked about earlier with this like armored material. It's pretty cool. The Hinzas, if you don't like leather, don't like having a dead animal wrapped around your foot, it's understandable. It's an actual good vegan option for a hiking boot. It's got the materials, the high quality outsole. The fake leather does seem like it's a decent fake leather. So it's this, I wouldn't even necessarily say avoid this one if you're a vegan, but if you're not a vegan, you're fine with leather, I would get a leather boot. And then the Bruins, I think it's just a really good, durable, all-around boot. I think you can do a lot of different things in this. You can work in it, you can hike in it. It's not gonna perform as well on the hikes just because of this outsole, but it's gonna be durable. It's probably gonna outlast the majority of these, and it's just super, super versatile. That should be everything you need to know to make a smart buying decision for a barefoot hiking boot or just even a barefoot boot in general. We've also done a barefoot tactical series. We've done a barefoot gym shoe. We've done a few other barefoot compilations like this. So I'll put links to those below. And let me know what your opinions on these. Did I miss anything? Is there one that you disagree with certain points on? Have you tried any of these? Let me know your opinions of each of these in the description because it's a great resource for people. Even sizing, people like to have sizing recommendations. So put all that information below and let me know what other barefoot boots you want us to compare and cut in half for another version of this. And thank you guys for supporting this and these small brands and the big brands that are really changing this industry in this up and coming barefoot world. So thank you guys for everything you do. See ya. Big lugs. And caused pre